happiness, nachas, simchas, great friendship. Okay.
Hello.
Well,
Hi. Ken.
Hello.
Hi, Mario.
no see, guys.
There we are.
147.
It's been a while. It's been a while since we. Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah.
No. 147.
Yeah, we're going to talk
Maybe the
about the
halacha change.
melacha of tearing.
Okay. All right.
Harold, you didn't go to the desert?
Did I? No. I was in Montana last week.
It must be like 120 there.
No, it's not much hotter than here. I was surprised. It's only a few
Oh,
degrees hotter. It's
right. No, Harold.
what? 102.
Mhm.
102.
Oh my
It was
God.
90. It was 92 today.
It's now.
Oh, now, yeah. The high was
But look at it. Look at the
oh
bottom.
yeah,
It's
114.
114.
It's okay. I can take it. My limit's
Tomorrow,
116.
tomorrow it's going to get colder. 111.
But next week is only 95 next Thursday. I'm going next week. I'm taking a jacket.
They can get because you're going up to Mount San Jacinto.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's cold up on top.
It's 30 degrees. It's always 30 degrees less up there.
Yeah, it's cold.
Well, not in the summer. Summer like 70 up there or 75.
Let me
What page
check.
are we on?
147.
147. Tearing. Can you tear toilet paper on Shabbos?
If you have to go to the bathroom, I suppose you can.
Emergency.
There's Ernie.
Ernie can answer that question.
Yes?
Chaim had a question about tearing toilet paper on Shabbos.
Say it again.
Chaim asked the question. Oh, he's muted.
Sorry, I just got my dinner. The question is, as we don't have to answer it now, Ernie, maybe as we're learning, is whether in what circumstances can you tear toilet paper on Shabbos?
Is it perforated or not perforated?
Assume it is perforated.
Huh?
Assume it is perforated. All toilet paper is perforated, some degree.
No, some have a line there, and as if it's pre-torn.
Some like this.
Say it again.
Some have like a curved line, the newer ones, and they come out.
Well, we're gonna learn about tearing a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, well, we're gonna learn about that, and we'll see when is it permitted, when it's not.
147, Ernie.
Correct. Defining the malacha of tearing. The malacha of korea, tearing, is defined as the reverse of the malacha of sewing, which we have seen consists of joining two units together. The Mishnah describes the malacha as tearing. You have to tear in order to sew two stitches. The Gemara Masechet Shabbos explained that this type of tearing took place in the Mishkan when a hole caused by a worm was discovered in the curtains. In that case, the curtain needed to be ripped further in order to be resewn properly. So the Gemara Masechet Shabbos Ayin Daled, HaKorei Amanas for if you tear in order to sew, Kriya b'Mishkan mi'ave, was there tearing in the Mishkan? Yeah. Rabbi Rav Zeir, Sheken Yiriyah Shenafel Bodarna, that there would be a hole because of a worm. Korinbo, you extend the tear, and then that allows you v'toy for nosa. So the tearing in the Mishkan is for the purpose of sewing. Rashi explains that they had to widen the hole caused by the worm, so that the resewn fabric would be smooth and even. Darna, Rashi says, is a tolas, a worm. Umanakiv bonekev cotton vagul. And it would make a hole in the curtain that was small and round. The tzarech likro lamatu lamalos hanekev. They had to tear above and below. Shalotei atfir asuya kimtin kiptin. It would be if you had to sew a hole, it would crimp it. So they would tear it, and they'd have like a more of a linear tear, which you could sew, and then it wouldn't be so noticeable. It's evident from the Mishnah of the Gemara that the prototype case of tearing, which is forbidden midoraisa, involves tearing specifically done in order to sew. The Rambam writes that one also violates malacha whenever one's tearing serves some constructive purpose. Let's say you're angry and you tear something to decrease your anger. Hakoreh b'chamoso, abanashu chayv likro alav. Or you have to do kriya because of a dead person in Avelis. Chayiv, and Neshmiyashiv is daito b'dover. It makes you calm, so it's constructive. V'yanuch yitzro, your temper will be assuaged. V'hol v'chamaso shachachas, because his anger is coming down. B'dover zarev k'mesaken. It's a corrective action. V'chayiv. The Shulchan Aruch addresses the act of tearing on Shabbos in two consecutive halachos. In the first, he writes that one who tears papers violates the prohibition of fashioning a vessel, but he does not mention the malach of tearing. Ein shoivim acheres, we don't break pottery. Vein koirin aniyar, we don't tear paper. B'nei k'misakin kli, it's like you're correcting a vessel. In the second halach, the Shulchan Aruch writes that separating papers that are glued together violates the malach of tearing. You separate papers that were glued, or oros devukim, or hides that were glued. Your intent is not just to destroy. Hareza told us that would be a malacha deraisa. Why does the Shulchan Aruch rule differently? What distinguishes one from the other? Right? By tearing a paper, he didn't mention kriya. He just mentioned misakin kli. The Bir Halacha, right, the Mishnah Berurah, addresses the discrepancy between these two rulings, and he explains that fashioning a vessel, as described in Seif Yud Gimel with the paper, is forbidden midrabbanan. He also addresses why tearing papers does not come to the level of malach of tearing midiraisa. V'lachura lefima shemuchach b'sifa samuch to korea manas l'taken chayv mishum korea. Ma'ilo nemer b'zeh mishum korea. Why, when they talked about tearing papers, didn't they mention kriya? V'od the Miloshna Rambam perek chav gimel mashma mishum rabbanon. Tearing papers on Mirabon. Vimhayabo, Mishum Korea, Yabo Yisur Deraisa. If it was tearing, it would be Mideraisa. Ve'emes Kvar Hikshazeh, Beprima Godim. V'nishar Bekusha, the Prima Godim asked the question, and it remained as a question. Umasharotza Echa Ben Achronim, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, Lo Tzimizeh de Loshach Kriya Kim Bedover HaNitbar V'nerag. The Shulchan Aruch said that tearing is only applicable to things that are sewn, like garments. Shenistabik magufim rabim. It has many joined parts. Ukein shahi biyuriyos, like by curtains. Avalobadovashu miguf echad, like paper, kama orvaniyar. That's what the Shulchan Aruch tried to do, but ze eino. It's not correct. The Mavor B'Yerushalmi Badei, the Ba'or Shaykh Gam Ken Kriya. He says the Yerushalmi brings that by leather, there is tearing. The Luleitim Mistafina, he says, if I wasn't afraid, Havamina Davar Chodesh B'zeh, he would say a new thing. Do Loshach Shem Korea Manasla Sakein, Kim Shekorea is a Davar Be'emtz of Utzrach L'tikun Shneim. When tearing, in order to improve, that's where you tear something in the middle. You have to correct both sides. Like the case of the worm making a hole in the curtain. The Bir Halacha refers to the Shulchan Aruch Harav, who suggests that the malacha of tearing does not apply to materials made of one composite unit, such as earthenware. However, the Bir Halacha rejects this, since the Yerushalmi states that leather is subject to the malacha of tearing. Instead, the Bir Halacha suggests that tearing a single entity, such as leather or paper, qualifies as the biblical malacha of tearing only when it is cut into two or more parts that are both used. According to the suggestion of the Bir Halacha, it is possible that some practical cases of tearing on Shabbos, such as tearing toilet paper or aluminum foil, would constitute only a rabbinic prohibition, since one is tearing in order to use only the part being torn from the roll, but not both parts. This could have important ramifications, as will be discussed later in this year. The Hilchos Shabbos rejects this and maintains that if when someone tears one thing from another, intending to use one part immediately and the other part later, it's a constructive use, and it would be kriya malacha even midaraisa. What's more, he points out that the Bir Halacha's suggestion is not readily accepted as the halacha. Lefi svarazum korech haticha megalil niyar toilet. Ein ze iser Torah. Right? According to the Mishnah Berurah, tearing only one side, when you tear a piece of toilet paper, you're only going to use one side of it. And he wants to say it's only Rabbanan then. Kivin she'em metakin elas hachaticha shekorea kol panim im korea shelo b'makom hamenukev. That's if he tears it other than on the perforation. Omnam ze eino. The kivin shegalil aniyar omed lichatech lechatechot ktanos. A roll of toilet paper, the whole purpose is that it's made to be cut into smaller pieces. Lachen gam achituch begalil aniyar nechshav tikun. Even though you're only taking one piece, it's still a takana legabe chaticha shetichatech v'atid, and the other piece will be used in the future. V'im ikar svaras habir alocha. He says the whole svara of the Bir Halacha needs attention. Given shakriya nasis litzorich v'ederech hashchasa, you're tearing for a need. You're not tearing for like a kilkul. Lama yichashem mekalke mishum shlo tikein b'chelek hasher shel niyar. Why is it destructive? Because you didn't do anything on the other side of the roll that you left behind. You didn't do any improvement on the other side. If the large roll of toilet paper was damaged because of this tearing, in a manner that the damage is more significant than the benefit that you get from cutting the paper from the roll, but that's not the reality. We don't damage the remaining toilet paper. Elsewhere, the Shulchan Aruch points to another situation in which tearing becomes permitted. If someone needs something which is covered by a sealed wrapper, it's permitted to pull apart the wrapper, since this is considered an act of removing an item rather than an act of tearing. Choislois shel tmarim v'grogros. You have a package of dates or figs. Makisui kosher b'chevel. It's tied with a rope. Matir v'soiser sharsharosa chevel. You can untie the rope and the knots. V'choitech afilu b'sakin. You can do it even with a knife. Afilu gufan shel choislois. You can even open up the package. You can tear the package open. It's like cracking open the walnut, the shell of a walnut. So tearing open a package to get at the food is not a problem. The Mishnah Berurah cites the Tosefta, which permits tearing a leather cover off the top of a wine barrel in order to access the wine. Mutar gam ken likroha, or me'al pi hachavis. I guess there was a piece of leather on top of the barrel. Shel yain uvat shel chavin laso zinuk. As long as you don't have kavanah to make a spout. Now we're going to deal with other practical applications of tearing, as well as toilet paper. Hopefully tonight. As with the melachos of sewing, there are numerous practical applications. The Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa offers a number of practical applications of the principle that we've discussed, according to which one may tear an outer wrapping or covering for the sake of using the enclosed item. For instance, one may tear the wrapper of a chocolate bar or a plastic seal on a bottle cap, provided that one does not tear words and that you tear it in a destructive manner. Mutar likroes niyar atifa shel shokolad. You can tear open the paper covering of a chocolate candy. Et kisui aplastika mechaseh pkaka babkuk. You can tear open the plastic covering of a wine bottle. The gamet haniyar or aluminum hamevet mechaseh pnimi shel kufsot kafe namas. Let's say there is plastic or aluminum that's the inner seal for instant coffee. As long as you fulfill the conditions set forth in the next seif. What are those? When you tear a paper covering yikras niyar derech kilkul, you should do it in a destructive manner, not in a way that you tear it so that you could use it again. Or use it for other purpose. Or a piece of it. These are kind of certificates that are printed on the wrapping. You can't keep those. That would be no different than tearing a paper into two pieces that you're going to use. And then it says, Lo yikra otiot otziyurim. You have to try not to tear letters or pictures. Some people are more lenient and allow that. We had that in Shir 5 way back. By contrast, tearing open a sealed letter constitutes a malacha midaraisa. Hapri chodesh b'yoredei kosa. The Yisrael HaPoischo yesh bezechiyuv chatas l'kolama. If a Jew opens a sealed letter, you're chayav chatas. The kriyas anaru mekalkel amanas l'taken. This is tearing for a constructive purpose, for you to get at the letter. So that you're not allowed to do. The preceding ruling is referring to a letter which is itself sealed. But regarding a letter enclosed within an envelope, you remember the letters we used to write where we sealed and then you open it up and there was the letter itself. We're not talking about an envelope. But he says with a letter that's in an envelope, the Bir Halacha writes that it's forbidden to open it only midrabbanan. He describes another letter within an envelope. Tearing the outer paper, you're mekalkel, and you're potter from a chatas, but potter means it's potter of a losser. You're not allowed to do it. The Chazon Ish argues that opening an envelope might be just like tearing the leather off the top of a barrel. And as an envelope is meant to be opened, the act of tearing it open cannot be viewed as an act of destroying either. For this reason, the Chazon Ish permits opening an envelope with a letter inside, provided one tears the envelope so that you can't use it again. So the Chazon Ish argues and is more lenient. Uvikriyas hamatafim eno choshesh lamatafa shetishachet. If you don't care that the envelope is going to be ruined, havaleke korea or shal pichavis. It's like what the Shulchan Aruch said about tearing a leather covering on a barrel. Vein kamishum korea. The gamin kamishum soiser. You're not destroying something. Given the psicha tikun. The opening the envelope is a takana, not a kilkul. V'nam yesh leser de zimnin de nichel l'shamish b'matafavim b'meta telekam efshashu deraisa. He says if the plan is to keep the envelope, then it's a kriya deraisa. There are many other regular practical issues surrounding tearing on Shabbos, such as tearing garbage bags from a roll, or tearing plastic wrap or aluminum foil. According to the Bir Halacha, it would seem that these actions would be prohibited midrabanan. However, as noted there, others may hold that tearing these items would be considered proper koreh and forbidden even midraisa, as explained by the Pnimei Halacha of Eliezer Melamed. HaKoreh sakiot nylon shebegalil, if you tear plastic bags that are in a roll, or mapot nylon shebegalil, or tablecloths, kedei lishtamish ben, oiver b'isr Torah. If you have kavanah to tear it only in the perforation which are there, then you're actually cutting. Contemporary poskim dispute the status of tearing along deliberate, predetermined lines or perforations. Although detaching two adjoined entities in any manner might always constitute loch of tearing, when a unified entity is severed through precise, measured cutting, this constitutes malacha mechatech. Thus, Rav Melamed notes that this might be the status of cutting along perforation. However, some poskim wonder how to view this when someone simply detaches along lines due to convenience, but not because one desires a certain size. The Piskei Tshuva agrees and notes a number of other cases that would also be forbidden. He says, "Lizaher ma'od ma'od." You have to be very careful. Niaros tissue, ashelo nechtechu kahogen, that were not separated from each other. Be'et Yitzra, when they were manufactured, v'nisharu mechubarim zeh lezeh, and they're connected, and now you're tearing it. V'atoshel chayv v'nator b'shum korea or makeh b'patish u'muktzim he. So you got to be very careful with tissues that are somehow connected. U'kumo kain kol suge glile niar, all of these rolled papers. Niar toilet, umegavos niar, toilet paper on a roll, niar atifa, wrapping paper, uglin or aluminum foil. Also be'achlet lachtof l'tlosh l'kromim klum. You can't tear those. Uglulim e muktzim he. The rolls are muktzah. Beinim korea b'mokam am yuad l'kach, whether it's in a perforation, beinim korea b'mokam acher, v'rak al yedei nochri, ha'makilin l'tzorach Shabbos. If there's a need for Shabbos, or another great need, you could ask a Nochri to do it. Or there are people to rely on it that you could do it through a Amir Lakum. Another relevant case involves a book whose pages are stuck together. It discusses the Mishnah Berurah, which differentiates between the different ways in which pages may become stuck together. If the pages become attached due to some external substance, such as something sticky that got on the page accidentally, you can separate them, as long as it doesn't separate the lettering. But if they're still tied together from the time of production, you wouldn't be able on Shabbos to tear them open. If it came like that way from the factory, which was supposed to be like that forever, you can't separate it. If they're wax or glue, or when they were tied, you can open it. There's no sewing. If it's connected where the letters are, then also leparkim, then you cannot separate it. You can't even ask a goy if you're going to open up, tear pages of books which were never cut, that you would be chayv midaraisa. Rav David Ribiat, in his Sefer, the 39 Melachos, gives another application of Korea. One may not tear off the glued label from a bottle or container. However, one may soak a bottle of wine or soda in ice water to cool it, even if the label is likely to loosen and come off as a result. If the wet label comes off, doesn't come off, it becomes very loose, it's about to slide off, one may remove it completely because it's no longer considered attached to the bottle. New garments purchased from a store, typically tagged. If the tags were not removed before Shabbos, can you cut them off on Shabbos? The Bir Halacha writes that cutting a material that would never be subsequently sewn, such as a rope, does not constitute tearing. Ein shaykh lesser machmas korea gufa l'asur mirabanan afilu b'shalom anas litfor. There's no isser to say even that it's midrabanan. Dein shaykh shem zel b'kriyas abeget. That's if you're going to tear a garment. The shaykh bo korea anas litfor. Lachi gaz rabbanon afilu b'shalom anas litfor. Mashen came b'zeh. But not regarding like a tag that you're going to tear off. The Bir Halacha argues that the prohibitions of tearing are categorically incompatible with the kinds of things that would never be reattached, because the model of malacha itself applies only to tearing done in preparation for sewing or reattaching. Thus, it's not forbidden to tear the string tied around something. Based on this reasoning, the Pnei Halacha rules that one may cut tags off of new clothing even on Shabbos. If before Shabbos you didn't remove the tag, you can cut it. It's not connected, completely to the clothing. It's not considered that you're going to tear for sewing purposes. Now we go a little bit more in detail regarding tearing toilet paper. We mentioned above that tearing toilet paper on Shabbos is certainly prohibited, either midaraisa or midrabanan. What should someone do in the event that one discovered that only uncut toilet paper is available? Is there room for leniency? To answer this question, we need to further consider the halachic status of tearing perforated items, such as toilet paper on Shabbos. We saw earlier that tearing a closed neck opening of a garment for the first time is forbidden. We will see in the next year that according to Rashi, this does not violate tearing, but it violates makeh b'patish, which means like completing a kli. The Bir Halacha suggests that this does not constitute tearing, because the malacha only includes a case in which the tearing allows for some subsequent reattachment, such as the case of resewing the curtain in the Mishkan. Thus, although constructive tearing, such as opening a neck, would be forbidden as striking the final blow, it's not forbidden due to kriya. V'lo niskavin lekalkel, lo nishar lanu kim levaer svaras Rashi. We have to explain Rashi. The Kosav who wrote the Posech Beis Hatzavar, if you get a garment and the neck has not been opened, b'Shabbos, and you open it, you're going to be chayav because you finished a kli. The mashvil leimana, you turned it into a kli. Why didn't over there lama lo kosam mishum korea amanaso sakin? Venerally disfarasohu the lo shaykh shem korea kim kishu makalkel be'esa pehula. You have to be makalkel at the time of the action. Ela shu machavin b'shvil eza tikun, and you have kavana for some useful purpose. Uke'ein shay b'mishkan, like was the Mishkan, shireh shenafla badarna, a curtain that had a hole, korin bo v'torfino, so shakriya mekalkelas is a yiriya b'yoser. Yes, you damage the yiriya, but then you'll be able to sew it. Umechlaza koreh b'chamaso. So if you tear for your anger, but there's some positive act, it's also osur. But but if you open up a shirt's neck, the mashvile mana big marzel, yidei psicha gufa, Now you're creating a kli. Ein chalal ze shem koreh klal. It's not called tearing. V'chayav ze mishum shem echad haynu makeh b'patish, which is different than kriya. According to the Bir Halacha, Rashi defines korea only as tearing, which facilitates a later constructive benefit, but not for tearing, which itself generates the benefit. Accordingly, it could be argued that Rashi would hold that tearing toilet paper is not considered korea, since the tearing alone is the constructive act, which makes the paper immediately useful. Nevertheless, we have already seen the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch do rule that such tearing does constitute the biblical malach of korea, according to most opinion. However, tearing with a shinui violates only a rabbinic prohibition. Therefore, if there's no cut toilet paper available, the Hilchos Shabbos allows tearing it with a shinui due to the principle of kavod habriyos. So there is a concept of human dignity, but you can violate only a drabonon because of kavod habriyos. So if a person somewhere where there's no cut toilet paper, it would not be human dignity for him not to clean himself. So he's allowed to clean himself because it violates only a rabbanon, based on this Rashi. Also, likro niyar toilet b'Shabbos. First, he says you can't tear a piece of toilet paper on Shabbos. Beinim koreh b'makam hamnuka, beinim koreh b'makam acher. Makes no difference, perforation, not perforation. Bareza b'chlal isur korea. But mishim mitzvah b'makom she'ein bo niyar toilet chatuch. Rak galil niyar she'ein chatuch. You find yourself somewhere with toilet paper that's not been torn. Mutter l'korah kalach yad. You can use a shinui. Kigon sheyikra b'marafko. You can tear it with your elbow. Mishum sheyesh lahatir b'locha kalach yad b'makom kavod habriyos. V'makom sheyesh nachri adif lomer l'nachri likros in derech shinui. You should tell the Gentile to tear the toilet paper if you can in an unusual manner. The Yalkut Yosef expands the heter of tearing toilet paper when necessary. He writes that according to the letter of the law, one may even tear it normally in the instruments of kavod habriyos. If they forgot to cut Erev Shabbos toilet paper, you can cut it with your foot or your elbow. He says, Mikradin, Gambaloshin mutter lachtoch. Even without a shino, you could tear it. Rav Yosef explains further that tearing paper is forbidden only on a rabbinic level. This is based on the Shulchan Aruch Rav, who holds that no prohibition of tearing applies when the material being torn does not have two or more distinct components. Thus, it's just Mesakin Mirabanan, and the sages were lenient in cases of kavod habriyos. Those who disagree with the explanation of Shulchan Aruch Rav, such as Bir Halacha, would not agree with the leniency of Rav Yosef. So most contemporary poskim permit tearing paper only with a shinui. Says the Yalkut Yosef, Ulam b'Shulchan Aruch Hagraz, that's the Shulchan Aruch Harav, Kosav, she'isur koreh ma'atorah eino el bebeged shenasa megufim rabim. Biblical kriya is a garment that's made up of multiple units. Mashay ken niyar sheguf echad, paper is one unit. Shein b'psika so mishum koreh. Therefore, the koreh doesn't even hold. V'chein miduk b'loshon harabim b'loshon morna shulchan aruch shekosvo. Shakoreh niyar osur mishum davi k'mesakin kli. It's not kriya, it's mesakin kli. V'lo osur mishum koreh. V'gam muchach davi k'mesakin kli. V'lavi el mirabonon. U'fi zeh yesh lomer b'zeh gadol kavod habriyos. K'masher tir b'muktav v'karmelis. Same thing if a person finds himself in a carmelis and he's not wearing the right clothing, he can carry in a carmelis because of kavod habriyos. They relaxed rabbinic restrictions when an individual's personal dignity would be compromised. Mida writes that the malach of carrying applies in the true public domain, while hotzah applies to a carmelis only on a rabbinic level. We'll learn this a little later in a different volume. Another material product.
Is
Often
it me or are we not hearing Ernie? His voice is cutting out.
You can't hear me?
Now we hear you.
Yeah,
You maybe when you move away from the microphone, it sometimes reduces the volume.
Another material product
I
often
still don't hear you again.
You can't hear me?
Now we do. I don't know what's going on. It's
Yeah.
could be a poor upload connection. If you have a poor upload connection, that's what will happen.
Let's try this. Let's try this here. Another material product often severed for use even without perforation is cotton. Regarding strands or sheets of cotton, the Shmir Shabbos Gilchosa rules that one should not tear them on Shabbos. He notes that Rav Shlomo Zarmach argues that pulling apart thin strands of cotton should not constitute tearing. It's like pulling apart a spider's web. But Rav Shlomo Zarmach ultimately concludes that one should act stringently, in deference to the stringent view of other poskim. Asr lachin b'Shabbos psilos mitzemer gefen. You can't prepare pieces of cotton on Shabbos. Yesh lachinam imod yom. You have to prepare them Friday. You should avoid tearing cotton on Shabbos. Tov lachin kamot maspeket shel tzemer gefen tolish mod yom. You have to prepare if you need cotton before Shabbos. Va'olam nohagim la'achmir. People are stringent. He was lenient. You're really separating. You have the thin fibers. We learned the Shulchan Aruch Harav says there's no tearing by that. Even though they argue with him, the Soivrim, the Shayach, Lechas Koreh Gam B'Davar Shu Guf Echad Mikaro, Mikol Mokom Ein Kam Mishum Lechas Koreh. It's not Kriya here. Ki Kriya Sivecha Dak Lo Mikri Koreh. One little fiber is not called tearing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Ki Rak Machmas Sapira Koreh Manashim Et Zeh B'Shem Korea. Avol Kriya Tasivim Adakim Dome LeKriya Sivechad Dak Mikoreh Achbish. It's like a spider web. Even though he seemed to be leaning leniently, he went lachmir. The Alkut Yosef agrees that one should avoid cutting cotton on Shabbos, make sure to do so beforehand. But there are room for leniency when needed. You should cut it before Shabbos. Let's say women want to use it for b'dika. You should follow the more stringent view. Let's conclude with a machshava. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch writes in his Perush on the Torah that the word Shabbos conveys the idea that one should cease all unfinished work and view everything as if it is entirely complete. Kvar be'arnu ki Shabbos eina mitzayen menucha. Shabbos doesn't mean rest. Masiyah mumetzes, that to refrain from strenuous work. It's stopping from continuous work. Ha'adam ha'shovet, the person who rests on Shabbos, meisirat yado min advarim. He removes his hand from day-to-day living. She'ad kotipo b'hem b'shinas surason. Up until time, he's been doing tasks, he's been shaping and altering. Once Shabbos hits, they've reached their form. Even if things remain far from complete. His period, that Sunday through Friday, he created it, it's a whole world. It's as if it's complete. That's one of the ways to look about what we do on Shabbos. Rav Volbe summarized another aspect of Rav Hirsch's understanding of the significance of ordaining from labor, as expressed elsewhere in his writings. Nullify human action before Hashem. Klomar. B'Shabbos muvkaz balus adam ala bria. On Shabbos, human control over nature is removed. B'Kadosh Baruch Hu shebar sa'olam habalam ha'yechidi alav b'yom zeh. Hashem, who created the world, is the sole owner of the world on that day. Ad she'ein adam reshut l'chom lachi yotzeres. So much so that a person cannot do a constructive act on Shabbos. Kilachitz al kaftor ladlikor, even putting a button to light a light. Anything. Because it's a creative activity and only Hashem is the sole owner on that day. When we refrain from malach on Shabbos, we should not simply view this as an inconvenience that prevents us from accomplishing things we want to do. Let us internalize the two perspectives offered by Rav Hirsch. First, that we should perceive all of our work as already complete. And second, that Hashem alone controls the world and all creative activity within it. We will start next week. Halachos of kosher, tying knots, and being matir knots. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, honey.
Have a good week, everybody. Tomorrow, Daf Yomi is at 5 o'clock.